I got to get a couple of hours on hands-on with crafting and inventory in Alpha 4.7's PTU, ePTU. I don't know if this is coming in Alpha 4.7. It's something that Chris Roberts has said on camera but Chris Roberts has said a lot of things on camera. What I can tell you is that from the first tech preview to the second one for both the inventory and crafting, there have been some improvements. Not as many as I would think we would need for crafting to make it though. So we're gonna start there. I got a whole bunch of notes, so I'll just be reading off of this for you guys. But the first things that I was really focusing on learning this time when I got into the crafting was the recipes and the blueprints. So a lot of the things that you need in the game to craft the stuff actually does make some sense in terms of what you look at. For instance, if you go into the crafting UI, I said it looks a lot like, it doesn't actually look a lot like. It looks something like what they show us here. So this is kind of like what your crafting UI looks like. You've got your item that you're crafting, you've got the materials that you can use here, you've got where you can put them, you have an autofill button, but it's very, very dev looking. It's to the equivalent of something like this. Something like this. Like you can tell it's unfinished. It doesn't have all of the nice bits and bobs. So that's the first thing that I'm like, maybe they could do that in a month, maybe not. But once you start going into the blueprints over on this side and you select your blueprints, I started to get a really good idea of like how the materials are being used. So all of the electronic components that I needed for any weapon I was using would require copper. So if you were looking at like a Devastator shotgun or a Karna or any weapon that needed to use electronics when it was firing, generally you'd have to get copper. Or if you looked at like helmets, a lot of the helmets have insulative linings, the same as say backpacks also have insulative linings. So if you were looking at crafting either of those things, one of the three parts that they would tell you need, so like here it says frame, wiring, and condenser, you would have like a frame that would require aluminum, wiring might be copper, and then you'd have like a insulative lining over here that would require azlerite. So you have to start to pay attention to what things you normally would craft or be interested in crafting, and then you have to get the specific materials that accommodate those things. A couple other things that I was noticing are the Terranite was used for segment paneling, Saldinium was used for filters, which was an interesting one. There was actually only one backpack that required you to craft filters, and those filters required Saldinium to go find. I also had to get silicone and tin. Hephaestonite was being used for grips on guns, aluminum for barrels and fuses, copper for conduits and wiring, hadanite for precision parts, aphrite for lenses. All of these things were being created by specific materials. There are also salvage materials. So harvestables are now listed under each planet and moon that you go find. There aren't that many of them, but there are some. On Hurston, for instance, while you could find aluminum, tin, orotite, and quantanium to mine, it also listed comp boards as a harvestable. So I don't think you can determine the entire game for that, but I do think that means we'll start seeing things like comp boards or ball bearings or rotaries, like little objects that could be used for crafting that are listed as harvestables. I didn't see any blueprints that required comp boards, but I'm just acknowledging that it was listed in the information as a harvestable that can be found in that place. On the star map, you get told where everything is. I was able to find out that Microtech, for instance, you could get Hephaestonite, Quantanium, you could harvest Heart of the Woods, Golden Medmon, you could find Copion or Quasi-Grazers, and you can also start mining ice now. In Pyro, though, things got interesting. So Stanton had lower quality materials. I was generally only finding things around like 200 quality maybe at the most. I didn't do a ton of mining, so I might not have found the best stuff. But getting over to Pyro, 500 plus level quantity things. So in the Pyro system, I couldn't find anywhere where Stellaron was in Stanton. Maybe it was available, but everywhere in Pyro, everywhere I found Stellaron listed was in Pyro. So already it seems like they're starting to say that more valuable specific materials we find in certain places. I thought this should have been the case with Nyx, which it was. I think there were a couple materials brought in with Nyx, but because we didn't have crafting, it didn't really matter, right? Like, even if they said, oh yeah, you've got super valuable minerals in Pyro, so you guys should go mine there because they're good and you can get them, you can't get them in Stanton. Eventually people are just like, yeah, but I'm still just mining it and selling it. It finally is going to matter, I think. The fact that you can go get ice in Microtech if you want at 200 quality, or you could go out into the depths of Pyro and get 800 quality level ice. And these stats change based on that. So here they're saying that the integrity on whatever they're building here is getting an 18.5+% boost. I was I was experimenting with rounds per minute. So when I made a P8 SC with a lower quality level, around 150, 180 quality of aluminum, I applied that aluminum to the frame of the P8 SC, and I got about 8 additional rounds per minute. So here it looks like they got a 34 boost, but this is all conceptual. In the actual game, I got an 8 rounds per minute boost. When I put in 720 level quality aluminum, that boost went up to 34 rounds per minute. So a very noticeable increase in weapon stats. I'm assuming armor stats. I didn't get to do that as much. So the difference between mining in Microtech versus Pyro is now the difference between winning a firefight. And that is an equation that Star Citizen has never had. It's no longer just about whether you have the best powerful ship. Maybe you have not the most powerful ship, but you got some good components in it. I'm not saying it'll make all the difference, but it can tip the battle. And people who want to min-max are going to be crazy about it. So I think, if anything else, the crafting update is just going to lead to mining being considered an actual main part of the game. It was a big part of the game before. It was one of the most progressive developments, but now it's like a real loop, because it's not just ship mining where you have to go and buy a ship to do it. There are plenty of FPS minables that get used for these things. Now, my experiences with the FPS mining wasn't as good. I think that that's not as prepared for crafting. I didn't feel like there were as many blueprints that were pointing me to get FPS minables. The crafting machine itself, it can only accept 2 SCU of boxes. So like, it was kind of hard to figure out how I wanted to load it. What I did was I put the crafting machine in my ship and flew away with it. Other people were keeping it in their hangars. And what I realized is that if you take the crafting machine with you, it can only craft things that you put inside of the machine. So that's a 2 SCU space. You can't really put much in there. You can also snap the crafting fabricator to your ship grid, at which point it will recognize all of the cargo in your ship. So there's a lot to be said about the possibilities of going out, taking a fabricator with you, and literally just living out of your ship, going around, doing a little FPS mining, rock mining, taking it back into your ship, crafting something, and then moving on. But like I said, the FPS minables were not as commonly used in blueprints, so I don't know if they're planning on that. I couldn't get any of the information about the minables from FPS mining. The UI is not updated to tell you the quality of the thing that you're looking at. Yeah, I didn't have too much else to say about FPS mining. You kind of don't agree with the quality of elements, yes, for parts and items, but copper is copper no matter what. The way that I'm hoping quality works, so there's the biggest change to mining that they've done here is they made rocks a single material. I'm iffy on that. I'm not sure. I think like it could work either way. This is probably why people think that I never say bad things. I'm not going to say it's bad that they're removing the other materials. I think that you lose some complexity, but at the same time, with the quality coming in, there's plenty of variants to still make it an interesting experience. But I always figured the quality was going to be very based on your refining process. So if you did get lower quality copper, it was lower quality because there were impurities, right? There were other materials in there, so you had to refine it to get higher quality. But it seems like quality is more of just kind of a number supplied to it. Yeah, so the rocks are single material. It's just a material you're looking at and inert. They've done away with geological descriptions. See, these rocks used to be described in the same way you would describe. I don't know if this will bring up. Now, I was reading elsewhere about the way that rocks are classified based on what's inside of them. God, what is it? I'm not gonna try and say it again because I know I'm gonna butcher it. But CIG did seem to kind of be following that system, and for better or worse, I don't know. Like, you can't say that system is gonna be necessary. Most people aren't going to study that system. You just need to make something that's consistent and makes sense. But they are changing away from that to focus more on just saying, this is an aluminum rock. This is a titanium rock. This is a copper rock. And while I was flying around yesterday, I was able to see them from pretty far away. I'd say like 5 kilometers. I could see specifically that I was looking at an aluminum rock. Isn't that the plan with refining? They're not being super clear about how refining will work in actuality. We just know kind of how they've talked about it before. Gems were mainly found on laser weapon blueprints. That's right. Yes. Yeah. So the Volt, yes. FPS minables weren't used for anything except for the Volt weapons. And unfortunately, I didn't get those blueprints. So that's another place where crafting is having a big change. Blueprints are going to start to become an award in the game. This is, I think the most important reason for that is because of item recovery. And the fact that item loss in Star Citizen is going to be a thing. The idea that you're going to die and keep your stuff after you die is going away. That was never meant to be a permanent change. That was something that they put in so that people would feel a little bit more comfortable playing until crafting came in. But now that crafting is coming in, they're probably going to, at some point, move over to this system where you can lose your stuff, but you can claim it back with a button. The thing is, you can, if you can't insure something, right? If you can't get insurance on your item that you just got given a reward for, and then you go outside and you get killed by a griefer, or a pirate comes and steals your goods, or you run into a glitch and fall over dead, that's it. You're done. You've lost that weapon. Somebody else can get it if they want, but you're not going to be able to do much about it. Many of you might be thinking that sounds absolutely terrible, which is why they're switching over to awarding us blueprints instead of weapons and stuff. So the blueprints are going to be what we use to craft. What you would basically do is you'd plug in the blueprint here. It would tell you the things that you need, and then you can pick the materials that you want. Currently, the Ghillie Combat Gauntlet gives you a blueprint for completing it, but almost everything in this game, I think, is going to be giving blueprints for upgrading, for crafting, and for... can't remember what the third type of blueprint is, but the idea being blueprints are tied to your character. So while they're going to go full loot and allow you to drop all your stuff if you get killed, the blueprint's tied to your person. So if they're giving us rewards of blueprints instead of actual items, that means we can have a full loot game situation where you have a risk of losing things, but you still have the ability to take that thing that you were awarded and make it again later. I think it's a solid middle ground. We'll see how it goes and how people like it. But that's what we're flipping over to with this system, with 4.7, with crafting, with blueprints. That's where we're headed. I enjoyed from this process the feeling of preparing for an expedition. It was the first time that I really felt like I was getting ready to go out and play a proper game. I got my materials, right? I put them in the ship. I got my fabricator. I put it in the ship. I got some food. I got a couple tools. I got a weapon. I put it on my weapon rack. And I got some mining gear. And I left it in the inventory of the ship. I went out. I ran a couple combat missions. I went and explored a moon side a little bit. I did some mining. And then I crafted a couple things. Now, the crafting that I did wasn't from the FPS mining, like I said. I didn't have that blueprint. But I was able to craft stuff from the commodities I brought from me. And it's like one step removed, you know? All you need is a couple friends to fly around with you, and you guys can all do some mining and put stuff together. And it just felt like I was actually playing the game. It felt like I actually had something to go do besides seeing a place or finding an outpost. Some problems that I ran into, obviously, it is the tech preview, so like, take these with a grain of salt. Some of them might exist by the time it goes live, but these are just the things that I ran into to give you an idea of where it is. I could not get the fabricator to snap to the cargo grid in the C1 Spirit. That was a problem. It seems like you need at least a 16 SCU space to snap the fabricator, but I still struggled there. It fell through the floor of my ship a couple times, actually one time, because it wouldn't snap. Inventory glitches. Honestly, crafting I didn't seem to have too many problems with. For really, the bummer for me for crafting is just that there's not that much yet. You really only get maybe half the weapons, a bunch of armors and backpacks and stuff like that to craft, but you're not making like ship weapons or components. And obviously, you have to go out to get blueprints for a lot of the other weapons. It's a start. It feels a lot to me like a big addition to Star Citizen, which is, oh, this is going to be a big deal over time, but this first drop is more just going to feel like a great addition to the game. A nice step up. It's not going to change how everything works overnight. I think more so this is going to be a slow change on how we think about the game. A good one, though. Definitely a good one. Jury's still out on just how perfect it is, though. Oh, I didn't get to try dismantling. That's a big thing. I didn't get to try that, but I do think that's one of the biggest changes here for me. Y'all know I love grabbing things. I love just picking things up and looting things. I like collecting guns from places as we run through them and just to sell. I don't have to sell them anymore. Granted, I'm probably not going to get the best quality from those, but I definitely am going to be looting and dismantling stuff constantly now after crafting comes in, because it's a way to play the game. You're going to be able to make commodities, and if refining somehow does let you raise the quality, then it should be useful. I'm definitely going to be interested in what refining does. Since the crafting blueprints for this test are currently just limited to the base variants of items, currently those are the only ones that can be dismantled. They say that as part of this test, we've enabled a limited set of blueprints for the Volt weapons and Antium armor set to be rewarded via the first Ghillie mission. So they have more advanced choices on material usage. That's what I did not get to see. Yeah, I'm very interested in knowing kind of how far the scale of blueprints is for this first go. They mentioned here there's also some choices for filtering, so you can filter your materials or your blueprints to show you only stuff that you can make or only stuff you can partially make. One of the big things, though, I would like to see from the fabricator is the chance to pin a blueprint to your objectives. I mean, that's not novel. That's a huge one in a lot of different types of games you play. You see an item that you need, you know you have a couple of those ingredients. You can pin that item to your objectives, so it tells you what you need while you're running around searching. Would be a fantastic improvement here. Let's talk about inventory. On the inventory side of things, I had more problems, believe it or not. I will say this. While I'm super keen on the inventory, and I think it is a great improvement over what we have right now in the game, it is still dealing with several of the problems that we have with inventory now. Ain't gonna sugarcoat it. It is, it's definitely gonna improve stuff. It's definitely gonna still piss you off. And I think part of that pissing you off is gonna be because of the performance of the game. The inventory itself seems to be built pretty well. It looks basically exactly like this. Biggest improvement, I actually asked a question about this. This was in line with the podcast this week, because it was all about looting and inventory. On Space Tomato 2, I ask a question to go with every podcast episode. It comes out on Spotify if you like that too. On the podcast question I asked this week, I said, what's the best part of a good inventory? And by far, the winning answer was stack all. Obviously, the other one was quick reactions. Maybe that wasn't super indicative, but quick reactions was meant to be like, the inventory actually works when you click on it and stuff. Most people want to stack all though, and I can confirm there is a stack all button in the inventory. You can open any single inventory you want in any pane on your screen, and you can stack all within that inventory. And it did work, mostly. It was the age-old inventory issue of I'm pressing the stack all button, and it's not stacking all. Now, it worked at one point and not another, so I could kind of tell that it was not working because of the server, but it was still just not super confidence building that even though we're getting the features with these nice buttons that do the nice things that we really want, clicking on it still might mean that it doesn't work. We'll see if that gets any better throughout the tech preview. Obviously, it's the tech preview, but even in live, the inventory does stuff like that. The other thing that was really nice is the search bar. It actually has this nice animation where you scroll over the search and it fills out the whole width of the menu so that you can type in whatever you want. The capacity is pretty good, updates in real time. Ooh, one of my favorite things about the new inventory is kind of quality of life. It's like, you know how you might be scrolling through the store and maybe you don't know the weapons that you're using that well, and you see all the attachments like the compensators and the lights and the laser pointers and stuff, and they say size 0, size 1, size 2. You might be dumb like me and just haven't paid attention to that in a long time. Now, when you're scrolling through your inventory, if you scroll over any object that is related to another object, it'll light that other object up. So attachments in your inventory will light up the weapon that it can be applied to. Armor or like if you highlight a backpack in your inventory, it will highlight the armor that can actually fit that backpack. If you highlight, I don't know, anything really. I can't think of a specific thing right now, but it was a really interesting quality of life improvement where it communicates things to you without you needing to ask. The equipping of stuff was that was good. I never had any problems with that. Dragging stuff onto here was all good. Dragging stuff from outside the inventory in was good. Dragging stuff from one inventory to another, that worked well. It was a little annoying. These tooltips don't exist, so you can't actually see the stats of the stuff in your inventory, which is kind of counterintuitive for this whole change. And then also there is a loot ground button up here that it's not in the concept, but there's a button up here you can press and it says loot ground. So I'm guessing it just picks everything up from around you and throws it into your inventory. That also wasn't working for me, at least at the time. So earlier on in the demo, it might have worked. By the time I started using it, the stack all button had stopped working. So I'm guessing that stopped working along with it. Yeah, so in the notes, they even say that is a work in progress. It's very possible that just wasn't functional at the time. It literally says, this is a work in progress, so the button will not be functional. So they already had said that. Glad I read this. Weapons also take up a larger slot, so instead of taking a one-size block like this, it takes up 2 of them, kind of like it does here in the equipment slot. I mean, I wish I had more criticisms for the system. Besides the responsiveness being a problem, I think the one thing that I would really love to see in an inventory like this is probably the ability to make groups, so that even within my personal inventory in a place, I can have a group that's like all commodities and then a group that's like all weapons and stuff. A little bit more organization tools for the inventory would be great, but as far as like an on-the-go inventory, you're getting in, you're getting out, you're adding stuff, you're taking stuff out, you're transferring stuff, this is pretty good. One other thing they could probably do is as like a holdover for saving, as a holdover, like until we can actually trade stuff with our friends more easily. I think they should have like a tab up here that can correspond to the inventory of the person next to you. I know that's kind of crazy. Maybe not to the point where you have access to it, but to the point where you and a person next to you can both press a button that allows you to transfer stuff between each other. It's just painful to try and give something to somebody else. We still don't know if the water bottle is going to fall through the floor of the ship or not. You know, it's a risk. It's a gamble. That's what I've got, guys. I will let you know when the next crafting or inventory tech preview is coming up. There's a very good chance that we'll have one this week or next. There's a really good chance that the next tech preview is not going to be just Evocati. I think the next one will probably go to Wave 1, and we'll have a lot more to talk about and explore and discuss. And honestly, if you want to test this out with me, when it does go to Wave 1, we're just going to get a whole bunch of people together in the org. We're going to try and go out and find all the quality materials we can and see what kind of weird fun we can have with crafting. So if this is the part of the game that really interests you, whether it's mining, looting, crafting, or just logistics, consider jumping in. These folks in chat, I won't speak for them. They're going to have you running loops constantly. Either way, hope you got some good info from this.